The Patriot Chapter 3. The father's sin victim profile #3 Mayor Alejandro Valdez age. 58 town mayor married father of one son. There was a time when Alejandro Valdez knew hunger. Not the kind people complained about after skipping lunch. Real hunger. The kind that kept children awake at night. The kind that made parents cry when their children weren't looking. As a boy, Alejandro worked in tobacco fields under the burning sun. He often walked barefoot. Many nights his family shared a single bowl of rice among 5 people. While other children dreamed of becoming rich, Alejandro dreamed of something simpler. He dreamed that nobody in his town would ever suffer as his family had. Years later, fortune smiled upon him. His tobacco business flourished. His hard work paid off. He became wealthy. Then he entered politics. Unlike many politicians, he kept his promises. Roads were built. Schools opened. The poor received help. Scholarships were created. Corrupt officials were removed. For nearly 20 years, Mayor Valdez became a symbol of hope. People called him the father of the North. Many believed God himself had blessed the town. But God had blessed Alejandro with one gift that would eventually become his greatest weakness: a son. Secondary victim profile Adrian Valdez age. 27 only son of Mayor Valdez. Adrian never knew hunger. Never knew sacrifice. Never knew hardship. While his father struggled in the fields, Adrian grew up in air-conditioned rooms. While his father walked barefoot, Adrian drove luxury cars. Every mistake was forgiven. Every problem disappeared. Every consequence was erased. Over time, privilege became arrogance. Arrogance became cruelty. Cruelty became evil. The town whispered stories. A teenager dead from drugs. A waitress who suddenly left town after rejecting him. A witness who disappeared before testifying. A young man beaten nearly to death over a simple argument. The stories never stopped. Neither did the complaints. Police reports piled up. Investigations began. Investigations vanished. Witnesses changed their stories. Victims withdrew charges. Some accepted money. Others simply disappeared. Every trail eventually led back to one man. The mayor. Not because he was evil. Because he was a father. And a father refused to lose his son. Yuri 3 nights after the death of Congressman Ramirez, Yuri could not sleep. The notebook sat on his desk, silent, waiting. The names from the previous chapter had already faded. Yet Yuri found himself staring at the empty pages. He no longer feared the notebook. That frightened him more. At exactly 12:01 a.m., new words slowly appeared, as though invisible fingers were writing with blood. Yuri's stomach tightened. The first name appeared. Adrian Valdez, then another. Alejandro Valdez. Yuri immediately recognized them. Everyone in the country knew Mayor Valdez. Unlike previous names, however, there was a message underneath. The writing appeared slowly, letter by letter. The son shall suffer. The father shall witness. The father shall understand. Then judgment shall come. Yuri stared at the page. For the first time, he spoke directly to the notebook. Why him? His voice echoed in the room. No answer came. Only another sentence. Good deeds do not erase protected evil. For the first time, Yuri questioned the list. This wasn't a corrupt politician. This wasn't a murderer. Thousands of people loved Mayor Valdez. Thousands owed their lives to him. Could heaven really judge a good man? Yuri investigates, unable to ignore his doubts. Yuri travels north. He needs answers. If these people are marked for death, he wants to know why. He interviews teachers, farmers, store owners, single mothers. The stories are all the same. Mayor Valdez changed their lives, built their schools, paid hospital bills, created jobs. Yuri becomes more confused, until one old woman quietly asks, "Did they tell you about the sun?" Everything changes after that. The deeper Yuri digs, the darker the truth becomes. Victims who are too afraid to speak publicly. Police officers forced to stay silent. Families paid to leave town. Missing persons. Drug operations. Abductions, assaults, threats. And hidden behind every case. A signature. A phone call, a favor. A mayor protecting his son. That night, Yuri sits alone. The notebook rests on the table. For the first time, he understands. Mayor Valdez wasn't being punished for being evil. He was being punished for allowing evil to survive. The punishment begins. Adrian begins seeing faces. Everywhere. People he hurt. People he destroyed. People who died because of him. They stand silently, watching, waiting. At first he laughs. Then he panics. Then he breaks. Within weeks he becomes a prisoner inside his own mind. And every day, Mayor Valdez watches, helpless, unable to save the son he spent his life protecting. Yuri's realization as Adrian's punishment grows worse, Yuri realizes something terrifying. The notebook isn't merely killing criminals. It is teaching lessons. Each punishment fits the sin. Each victim is forced to confront the consequences of their actions. And each chapter is slowly teaching Yuri something as well. The question haunting him now is no longer who deserves punishment. The question is what happens when someone good chooses the wrong side. Yuri's burden 3 nights after the death of Congressman Ramirez, Yuri could not sleep. The notebook sat on his desk, silent, waiting. The names from the previous chapter had already faded. Yet Yuri found himself staring at the empty pages. Something had changed. Not the notebook, him. The headaches still came. The visions still burned. The voices still whispered at the edge of consciousness. But they no longer crippled him. The first time the truth entered his mind, he collapsed. The second time, he bled. Now he simply endured, like a prisoner learning to live with chains. The pain had not become weaker. Yuri had merely become accustomed to suffering. That realization disturbed him, because pain should never feel normal. Yet somehow it did. There were other changes. At first, everyone around him suffered. Carlo heard whispers. Milton suffered nightmares. Even strangers felt uneasy when standing too close to him, as though something dark followed him wherever he went. Something not entirely human. Something that belonged on the other side of death. But over the past weeks, Yuri had learned control, slowly, painfully, instinctively, like learning how to hold a flood behind a dam. Whenever he concentrated, he could suppress the darkness, hide it, contain it. His sons no longer woke screaming. The whispers no longer escaped into nearby minds. For the first time since his resurrection, Carlo and Milton could sleep peacefully. Yuri considered that his greatest victory. Not the names, not the visions, not the truth, protecting his sons. Yet guilt remained. Every death still visited him. Not physically, emotionally. Arnold's elderly mother sitting alone in her apartment, waiting for a son who would never come home. Violet's 4-year-old boy asking strangers when his mother would return. The corrupt politician dying terrified and alone. Mayor Valdez watching his beloved son collapse before his eyes. Yuri saw all of it. Every night, every victim, every consequence. The notebook never allowed him to look away. Sometimes Yuri wondered if this was part of the punishment. Not theirs, his. To witness everything. To understand everything. And still be powerless to stop it. Because unlike the notebook, Yuri still saw people. Not names. Not targets, people. And people were complicated. That frightened him more than the darkness ever could. Yuri leaned back in his chair. His temples throbbed. The familiar ache had returned. Yet he noticed something strange. The pain no longer frightened him. Weeks ago he would have collapsed. Now he simply closed his eyes and waited for it to pass. The truth was changing him, slowly, relentlessly. The notebook had become easier to carry. And that terrified him, because suffering should never become comfortable. Yet every day he felt himself accepting things he once believed impossible: death, judgment, punishment, the destruction of entire lives. Sometimes he caught himself reading a new name without hesitation, without shock, without outrage, and every time it happened, guilt followed. Was he adapting, or was he becoming numb? The question lingered long after the pain faded. Chapter ending weeks later, Yuri receives one final message. The ink appears slowly. A father gave his son everything, except accountability. And so the town paid the price. As Yuri watches the news showing Mayor Valdez sitting beside his broken son, two new names begin appearing on the next page. Yuri's face turns pale, because one of the names belongs to someone he knows personally. End of chapter 3.